What's up everybody and welcome back to our channel. My name's Sydney and you're on the Connor and Sydney channel. Today I am going to be doing a pregnancy Q&A with you guys, answering all of your questions that you ask me on Instagram and on YouTube and through Messenger. So if you don't follow me on Instagram yet, follow the link below because I ask a lot of questions on there to help build my future videos and put together future ideas. So it really helps when you guys are contributing like that. So thank you to those of you who did ask questions. As you can see, it's obviously December. We have our tree up. And if you're wondering what all of this is over here, this is our manger. I'll show you. We have baby Jesus in there and the fake snow on the ground and star up there hanging from the ceiling. So like I said, I asked you guys to send in some questions about my pregnancy so far. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it out with the question that a lot of people have been asking: was it planned? And no, it was not planned. We had been struggling with really deciding when would be a good time to start trying to have kids. In May, I stopped taking birth control with hopes that eventually I could regulate my hormones enough that one day in the future, when we're ready, we could actually have children. And I was starting to not really feel okay with being on birth control anymore, so we stopped that. We've been doing natural family planning ever since, using the Natural Cycles app where you take your basal body temperature every morning and then that tells you if you're fertile that day or not. And I think in the back of both of our minds, we both thought it was going to take us a really long time to get pregnant. I thought because I have never had a regular period that I needed to at least get that birth control out of my system and start working on doing things for my body that would eventually make it easier for me to have children. So we were really careful about that and didn't know when a good time would be to have children. And with everything going on in the world, it seemed like we kept putting it off more and more and not knowing when was a good time, when was a safe time. It just seemed like there's been so much going on in the world and a lot of uncertainty. And when we first got married, Connor wanted kids like immediately, but as time has went on, we've really enjoyed our time together and started to think, man, we're gonna like have to change our lives once we have kids. And we knew we wanted to one day, but it kept seeming harder and harder to decide on when was the right time. And so the past few months, I've just been praying that God would tell us when it was the right time to have a child by giving us a child instead of us having it perfectly planned out. So I asked God to do it in His timing instead of our own, but we were still being so careful about things that it really blew us away when in September we probably were not as careful, literally only 2 or 3 times. So we thought obviously there's no chance that we're pregnant, but obviously one of those 2 or 3 times landed on the exact right date, and God was telling us, you guys need to stop putting this off, and now is the right time for you to have a kid. And so we were just completely blown away, but we're so thankful that it happened the way it did, because had it not happened in God's timing, I don't know how much longer we would have put it off. We wanted to feel financially set. We wanted to know exactly where we're gonna live for the next 20 years. We wanted to have everything in place before we finally settled down and had kids. But like everybody tells you, you're never really fully ready to have kids, so you just kind of gotta jump in there. And so we feel really blessed that God did this for us and He gave us a child when He felt like it was best. So praise the Lord that He made that decision for us. The next question is, how did you find out? So I was only like 1 day late on my period, and like I said, I have been so inconsistent my whole life. Like sometimes it would come every 3 weeks, sometimes it would come every 3 months. And so when I got on birth control a few years ago, it regulated those hormones for me and it cleared up the horrible acne that I had from my crazy hormones. And so I originally got on it to help my acne. So now that I was off birth control since May, I was noticing I had horrible acne, like absolutely horrible, like lumps on my chin and down my back and on my shoulders. And I was like, something is really going on with my hormones. And I was only 1 day late on my period. So I was like, well, it's not enough to make it think that I'm pregnant, but something is going on. And so I was only 1 day late, but I was making dinner and Connor's like, well, I'm just gonna run to the store and get you a pregnancy test. You want me to? And I was like, I mean, if you want to, it's not gonna be positive, but if you want to, that might be kind of fun. So he brought one home. I took the test. It was negative. well, there was only one line, and there's supposed to be 2 if you're pregnant. And I brought it out to the kitchen, and I was like, well, there's only 1 line. And Connor's like, are you sad about this? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, once I took the test, it seems like it'd be kind of fun to get a positive pregnancy test, but I obviously knew I wasn't pregnant. He's like, yeah, it's okay, no big deal. And I set it down on the counter, and about 2 minutes later, I walked past again, and I looked back down at it before I threw it in the trash, and I was like, there's a very faint second line here. And he looked at it and he's like, well, yeah, I guess, but it's so faint. And we're both like, well, what does that mean? It's probably nothing. And when you Google that, it says that it just means you're very early on in your pregnancy, but if there's even the slightest hint of a second line, you're definitely pregnant. And we're looking at it and we're like, well, I am only 1 day late. So like, does this mean I'm pregnant? And so I took like 2 more tests that night. They both came back exactly the same with that very faint line. So the next day, Connor went to the store and picked up pregnancy tests that said pregnant or not pregnant on them. And so I took it on that test. And when I took that test, it said pregnant. And I was in the bathroom by myself. Connor knew I was taking the test, but he was on the phone, and I just instantly started crying and just like fell to my knees and started praying and thanking God for this baby, because even though I didn't expect it, it felt like such a blessing that God was giving us this child, even when I didn't know that we were ready for it yet. So I waited for him to hang up the phone, and then I came out and I showed him. So some people ask like how I spilled the beans to him. That's another question on here, is how did you tell him? Well, he was with me for like literally every single test, so he knew exactly what the process was. But I did just walk out and show him the test when it said pregnant, and he was like just kind of in shock too. He just like sat there with me as I like started sobbing, and he's like, wow, we're really gonna be parents. And so I think we just kind of sat there and let it sink in while I like cried for a little bit. Not out of fear or anything, but it was just like such an absolutely shocking moment, feeling like God had blessed our marriage in a way that we did not expect. I didn't record it. That was something we always wanted to have just between us whenever that moment did come, so we just shared that moment very naturally. And then I went to the doctor the next day, and they confirmed it. They said it's way too early to see anything in an ultrasound. You are like 3 weeks along, but you're definitely pregnant. The next question is, how have you been feeling? That's what people ask me the most when they find out I'm pregnant. And I'm 14 weeks along right now. I felt extremely horrible for most of my pregnancy so far. At about 4.5 weeks or so, I thought I was gonna get away with being the one person that doesn't get any sort of sickness, morning sickness, whatever. And it's probably at like 5 weeks, it hit me like so stinking hard. I was sick from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. I would be throwing up first thing in the morning, throwing up at work, throwing up all evening when I'm trying to cook dinner. Any smells that I would smell would make me throw up, and then I would get in bed at night. I'd have to get back up out of bed to throw up. There were a few nights I woke up in the middle of the night specifically to throw up, and I woke up some nights with migraines. I was so exhausted, and I wasn't ready for that at all. I would come home from work and take a 3-hour nap, and then I would sleep 12 to 13 hours at night. I felt like I could just keep on sleeping, and if nobody woke me up, I could just continuously sleep through several weeks. So I've just felt really horrible, which is why I eventually told people at work, was because I was like, I can't hide this for much longer. I told them at like 8.5, 9 weeks, but I had been throwing up so much. I was like, I've got to tell somebody what's going on, because I was not doing well. But now the past like 2.5, 3 weeks or so, I'm starting to be able to eat more. So what's weird about it is you want to eat all the time, but everything sounds disgusting. So now I'm not as disgusted by foods. I'm starting to be able to eat a little bit more, and I'm not as nauseous throughout the whole day. Most of the day I'm fine. It's pretty much just in the morning, or just if I don't eat. Like I have to keep on eating throughout the day and eating snacks throughout the day to keep my stomach feeling okay. But if I let it get empty, I will still feel sick. But it is nothing like what I experienced from about 5 weeks to like 11 weeks or so. That was really something. Another question is, have you been craving any foods? And the answer is pretty much no, because Up until 2 weeks ago, I literally could not eat anything. So we would go to the store and I'm like looking for different foods that I never eat. Like, what could I possibly eat for breakfast that won't make me throw up? And so I bought like Cookie Crisp and like Pop-Tarts, and those were the only things I could eat for breakfast. And so it's not like I'm craving them, but it's like I had to think about what is the only thing that I can eat right now without throwing up. Does that make sense? But the past 2 weeks or so, I was craving B-dubs, and there was one Sunday night we ordered B-dubs from DoorDash, and the order kept getting pushed back longer and longer and longer, and I had been so excited for B-dubs for like 2 weeks at this point, so I was excited I was gonna eat it. And then eventually our order got canceled. We found out B-dubs was closed. I don't know what was going on, but I started crying because I was like so upset that I couldn't have B-dubs. But I've gotten to eat it now, and I've eaten it for like a week straight, so I'm pretty much all good on the B-dubs right now. But that's really the only thing. Spaghetti has sounded so good lately too. I haven't had it since I've been pregnant, but spaghetti always is sounding good right now. I keep saying I'll love it if I am craving things, because that'll mean I have my full appetite back. And for a while, when people would ask me if I was craving anything, I was like, man, I wish there was something that my appetite could handle, because I was so disgusted by food that I was just like, oh, I can't wait to crave some things. Another question is, how will you change/plan your workouts to accommodate your pregnancy? So I've been pretty bad about it. I thought I was gonna be healthy through my entire pregnancy because I didn't know how sick I was gonna get. So I started off great. I was working out every single day. I was eating very healthy. And then as that morning sickness hit me like so hard, there was no way for me to go to the gym and make it through a workout without throwing up several times. So I kind of stopped going for about a month, maybe even a month and a half. I only went like probably 2 or 3 times within like a month and a half time span, because I just needed that extra sleep in the morning when I normally go to the gym. It was like I could not get out of bed. I could not force myself to get up an extra hour earlier to do that. And with how sick I felt, it was just like kind of out of the question at that point. So now I've gotten back into it, and I'm trying to go like 3 or 4 days a week if possible, and that's kind of where my goal is right now. But the ways I've been accommodating my workouts is I'm just very nervous about everything. I don't want to do anything that could hurt the baby, but I'm lucky because I do have an apartment gym that's not as extravagant of a gym with like major heavy weights and crazy machinery and stuff. I'm just doing like lighter weights on the cable machines, lighter weights with the dumbbells, lighter weights with the Smith machine. So things that are pretty controlled. I'm not doing anything that's making me have a chance of falling. I'm not doing anything that's giving me a chance of like lifting something heavy enough that I'm gonna like strain something in my body or hurt the baby. So just less weights and being a lot more careful about what kinds of workouts I'm doing and what kind of ab workouts I'm doing. So I've been looking up a lot online, like what ab workouts are safe and which body positions are healthy. Luckily, I am a server, so I am on my feet walking and getting exercise from like 10:30 in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon every day of the week. So I do get that exercise and that cardio, but I do occasionally still like do the bike when I'm at the gym. And they do say that working out is very good to do during your pregnancy. It helps you have an easier pregnancy and easier labor, all that kind of stuff. So I am trying to get back into it now. Another question is, do you have any inclination of what gender you think you're having? So we actually know the gender now. So I'm gonna like flash back to how I was feeling at the beginning of my pregnancy and up until we found out. So the second I got pregnant, I assumed it's a boy, and I don't know why, but I guess a lot of people say a mom just immediately like has set in her mind what she's having, and I immediately thought I am having a boy. And then everybody told me over and over, okay, nobody told me that they think I'm having a girl except pretty much my mother-in-law. Everybody else was either like, I don't know, or it's a boy. And so I think as everybody told me it's a boy, we're having dreams that you had a boy, or like all these different types of predictions, I think I almost got frustrated because I was like, you guys can't, in my mind I'm thinking, you guys can't decide what I'm having. God has already decided this. So I think then I became defensive of it because it wasn't a split decision and it was everybody saying that I'm having a boy. I think I started to get a little bit defensive, like, it might be a girl though. Why doesn't anybody think it could be a girl? And so then I started like convincing myself, like, I'm having a girl. It could still be a girl. Even though I originally thought it was a boy, as it went on, I just started telling myself it is a girl, because that's how bad I didn't want other people to be the predictor of my baby. If the opinion like between everybody else had been more split between you're having a girl, you're having a boy, I think I would have stuck with I'm having a boy the whole time. But instead, I think the defensive part in me started thinking, no, it's a girl now, just to like oppose everybody else. So that's all I'm gonna say as of now, but I will be sharing the gender very soon. Another question people always ask is, what gender do you want? Again, we already know what we're having, but I'll say Connor and I talked, I think everybody talks before they have kids about what gender they would want first or blah, 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 all that stuff. And so looking at the past, before I got pregnant, I knew that I always wanted a girl first. I knew that Connor always wanted a girl first. He always expressed that to me. But as soon as we found out we were pregnant, I started saying, as soon as we found out that we were having a baby, we both were immediately like, we don't care what it is. As long as the baby is healthy, we genuinely don't care. So I think once you're in the position, your mindset changes and you're like, I will be so happy with either one, because God has blessed us with this child and he has already decided the gender and he has trusted us to raise this child. So the gender suddenly means very little. Another question is, what was your mom's response? And I showed it in the last video. I'll link that one above if you guys want to go take a look at that. But she was very shocked. She cried and she was so excited. She kept saying how excited she was to be a grandma. And so that was really nice to just see how excited she was for me. Come here, buddy. And after we FaceTimed her and told her, the next few days she would text me like every day, ask me how I was feeling, ask me how I was doing, and just keep saying, I just can't believe you're having a baby. This is too cool. This is so amazing. It's all I can think about. So that was really sweet. She always really shares in my excitement. Another question is, what names have you guys been thinking of? So we have always really highly disagreed on names. So that's been really tricky to try and come to an agreement on names. But I will say for boys' names, I really like one-syllable names. These are some names that I'm not using, but I really like names like Cash or Trip or Beck, like things that are just one syllable. And Connor doesn't like those. He likes names more like old-fashioned, like Henry, and I feel like I know a lot of people with that name. So coming up with a boy's name to agree on was very difficult. And then for girls, he likes, again, more like classic names like Lily. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many friends named Lily. And I know so many people named Lily. We can't do that. And then I like names more like my favorite name my entire life, my Spanish name in high school, all that was always Lola. I always thought my first daughter would be named Lola. And I like a lot more creative names with girls. Like Raya was another one that we really liked, but that's a Disney movie right now. Raya and the Last Dragon. I was like, I'm not doing that as a popular Disney movie. I also really liked Palmer. That's a road down here in Florida, and I thought how cute to have a name that always will like connect us back to Florida and connect us to like the palm trees and stuff, but Connor didn't like that name either. So it's been really hard to come up with an agreement on a name, because every time I say, what about this one? He's like, no. And then every time he's like, what about this one? I'm like, no. So that's been really tough. But people are asking if we do have a name picked out. We do officially have a name picked out, but we aren't sharing that until we have the baby. So sorry about that. Another question is, what has been the hardest part? The hardest part has just been dealing with all the symptoms that I've had that I never really thought about. I guess people tell you that pregnancy goes a certain way, you feel sick in the mornings, blah, 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 but it never processed to me that I would feel so horrible during my pregnancy. So the hardest part has just been having to sleep like literally like 15, 16 hours a day. Like I'm just awake when I go to work and just a few hours in the evening, and just being hungry all the time, but not being able to eat because everything is so disgusting. Another question is, what symptoms have you been experiencing? Literally everything. Like when I first looked up what are some pregnancy symptoms, I was like, oh geesh, I have all of these. Like I had the horrible acne. I still do. My whole back is covered. Like I don't even know what I would have to do if I have to wear a tank top. I have a sore back. I don't really sleep well at night. Even though I sleep so much time, I'm always getting up to go to the bathroom. So that's another thing. I have to pee all the time. I have the food aversions to the max. Definitely TMI, but your bowel movements change during pregnancy, and I've experienced that. One of the first things I did also notice was I was extremely sore in my upper region, and so I couldn't sleep on my stomach or anything, wear tight shirts, anything like that. I get out of breath really easily. I can't walk for long periods of time, or walking up the stairs, I'm really out of breath. I have a lot of lightheadedness when I walk or I'm on my feet too much, or when I first stand up, I'm pretty lightheaded. I get dizzy a lot more easily. I had the headaches for a little while, but praise the Lord, those have went away. And also one of the first symptoms I noticed that made us go take a pregnancy test is I told Connor something is going on with my hormones, my acne, blah, blah, blah. But I am so irritable. Things would happen at work, and I knew that it wasn't like me to be that angry and that bothered by the things that were happening, because they weren't anything that were a big deal, but I was just feeling so irritated, and I knew that was out of character for me to think that anything was that irritating. So the mood swings were really hitting me hard. Another question is, are you nervous to get big? And absolutely not. I've said since the beginning, I'm excited to get big. One, it means the baby is growing and healthy, and when you see that, it just gives you that reassurance that your baby is doing well. But also, I kept saying I would love to get big because that means I'm probably also putting on weight from my appetite, and I was just so ready to have an appetite again that at that point I didn't care how much weight I gained as long as I was eating again. And the last question I'm going to answer is, are you nervous to give birth? And my response to that is, well, isn't everybody a little bit nervous to give birth? That is a big deal. It's a little bit scary to think about it, but what I've told myself from the very beginning is God took care of the part that I was the most nervous about my whole life. The thing that made me the most nervous my whole life is that I would not be able to have a child and that I would be infertile. And so the fact that He took care of that for me makes me think I've already passed the hardest part. God's already done the biggest thing. And if He came through for me on that, then He's gonna come through for me on the rest of it. I don't have to think about how scary it is to give birth because I know that He's going to come through for me in all of those ways also. I also found a verse the day of one of my doctor's appointments, and it really stood out to me, and I think about it all the time now, and it is Psalms 112:7, and it says, He is not afraid of bad news, for His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord. And so I just think about that all the time now, that I don't need to fear bad news, and I can have hope and faith and confidence in that. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Thanks guys for asking all of your questions. Don't forget to go follow me on Instagram so you can join in with future Q&As and help me put together these videos. Thank you guys for being here. I love you guys and I appreciate every view and every comment. Let me know if there were any questions that I missed or if you have any remaining questions for me. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe down below. We are so grateful that you guys have been supporting our channel, and we will see you very soon. Thanks guys, see you later. Bye.